All right, the last section here of this chapter 12, lesson 2 is projected population trends. Okay, and population trends are changing all around the world. You mentioned, in the old days when it was a farming-based country, farming-based world, we saw having kids as a benefit. They made you money. You had a bunch of kids. They worked the farm for you. That's how you were able to grow your productivity at your farm. More workers. Now we know kids are becoming more expensive. And as other countries, our country is already urbanized. We've already become a country that's largely urban. There's not a lot of farmers out there. You have industrial farmers, companies doing it and hiring, whatever, oftentimes immigrant labor to come in and do the farming. It's not like family farms anymore. We're a largely urban society, or small towns, suburban, that kind of thing. But as other parts of the world start to urbanize, there's an assumption that there could be a decrease also in population rates there. And with some people suggesting that overpopulation is a threat to the world, then maybe this would be a bad thing. I mean, I don't know. That's a decision that you can decide on your own. But we're seeing countries in Europe with these really aging populations, these bulges of people. And let's start taking a look here at some of these charts that I've put together for you. Without immigrants in the US, our population would shrink, is the projection. And then with immigrants at this current rate, it would go up. We need workers to take the jobs to provide for the old people. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, these programs don't pay for themselves. The more workers you have chipping in, the more these programs, the longer they'll live. So these, losing population is a negative, economically speaking. And here's some interesting facts about, well, since we're relying on immigrants, what we're seeing is that there's a changing face in America, and that we are seeing that the European population is projected to go down, and that there will be really larger Hispanic and Asian populations, where the African American population will probably stay steady, moving towards what's predicted at 2065. So this is probably if we continue to not have high replacement rate in America and rely on immigrants coming into our country to keep our population where it needs to be instead of falling but rising, then we're going to see that kind of change. But what I was saying before that was that there are European countries and really also Japan and Korea where there are these huge bulges, okay? There are these huge bulges where ages 40 to 60, 70, all the way up to 80 here are bigger than the young. They're just not having babies. Okay, these are the young people and the percentage of young. We looked at the population tree of the U.S. and we said the U.S. isn't as bad as the Europeans, where although it's thinning here at the bottom, we know the baby boomers and the Gen Xers, the millennials. I'm a Gen X with that thinner area. It's more kind of straight, small, little. But look at Italy. When you look at the population trends of Italy, that's a huge bulge. That's big bulge. 1.2% of the population is almost double the amount of people that are from what is probably the baby boomer and Gen X era, and they're just not having a bunch of kids nowadays in Europe, and we're going to find out in Korea as well. Let's look here at a place where there are a bunch of young people, right? And this, I don't actually have the name of this place, so I'm going to pull back on it. Maybe try and look it up. Do I have this one either? Oh, this was great. I didn't do a really good job, did I? Let me find some. That's actually what I thought. This is Africa as a continent. So in Africa, you see the opposite, right? You see people don't really live that long in Africa, and there's a bunch of young people. right? Africa is one of the few places in the world where we're seeing, still a bunch of young people being born, and people just don't live as long. I mean, look at, 60s are still this teeny little percent of the population. We're in Italy, right? Again, we'll go back to Italy as an example. We see, oh man, people are living quite longer, right? But there's a huge bulge in this range. What is it? We're going to call it 30 to 70. There's a massive bulge in population. And who's going to pay their Social Security? Who's going to pay their medical bills when they get older? These people, these very few amount of workers. This is the challenge of the current population trends, is that a lot of these economic systems, the way they're built, young people are the ones paying the bills for the old people. And when you have a huge bulge of old people like you see in Italy, not in the US as much, right? You don't see that huge bulge, just a minor bulge, but the countries with the huge bulge in the middle, they're going to be in trouble. This is a world map, okay? And the world map doesn't have the baby boomer thing that we do. It's not as much of a triangle, but it is still a triangle. They still, around the world today, we still have more young people than old people and middle-aged people. It's maybe that, I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be. I don't know what population trees are supposed to look like, but as economists, we look at Italy and we say that is not a successful model. Now, why is this happening? Well, one reason is life expectancy. You can see here in the life expectancy map that, 100 years ago, people weren't even making it to 40 on average. I'd be dead. Continuing on, you can see though that life expectancy has increased dramatically over the last 100 years. Seriously, under 40 in a lot of places. But even you would say, okay, well, they got, medicines and antibiotics and certain things, but it continues, right? It's not like it's slowing down and growing. Life expectancy is growing massively across the board, continuing into the future. And they expect that in the next 30 years, life expectancy could go from 77 years old to an average of 83-year-olds. That's around the world. I'm gonna find you guys something interesting here. And check this out, life expectancy across our city, okay? And you can see people, average of 90. That's the darkest colors. Oh, wow, it's in the mountain, in the rich areas, right? We see people living extra long. This is Beverly Hills, this is Brentwood, this is the kind of Hollywood Hills, Santa Monica Mountain Range. But people are living to 90 in those areas. That's so long, right? Anyways, so these areas are people are living in 90. That's such a long lifespan. And then you can see it in the area where we're at work, Woodland Hills, Taft High, where we are together sometimes before the COVID. That next sector, what is that, 87-ish? And here's where I live. That's middle of the range. Maybe we're talking about, 83. A lot of this is about money, though, right? And it's people's access to healthcare. If you have the money to healthcare, you're going to live a longer life. And if you don't, if you live in some of the poor neighborhoods, you'll probably end up living less, which is really unfortunate. And sometimes, people would consider to be terribly unfair. But money does, equal healthcare. But life expectancy is going up, dramatically. Let me show you a few other things here about lifespan. Fertility rate. And fertility rate is how many kids a woman is going to have on average in her lifetime, if you look at all the women. And you can see that, look at Saudi Arabia. Oh my gosh, in 1973, I'm going to make sure I'm doing this right. In 1973, Saudi Arabia is averaging 7 kids per child, per woman. And now you can see that all of these numbers are much, much lower. Look at this, look at Korea. Korea is 0.9 kids per woman. Each one of these, there's the US, I think we turned out to be 1.7. Replacement rate is 2.1. So what that means is if it weren't for immigration, our population would be going down. And we know the challenge is there. Who's gonna pay the bills Social Security and take care of the old people. It could be an Italy situation. Look who out of Switzerland, 1.5. Portugal 1.4, Spain 1.3. Look at this, Norway 1.5. These European countries are all losing populations. And all of these countries are countries that have really generous social welfare systems to take care of the old. And the question is, how are you gonna do it? How are you gonna keep this system going if you're not having enough babies to replace the population, to take those jobs, to pay those taxes, to pay into those systems? This is a problem. It really is a future problem. Israel is one country that's pretty stable. They're still having a lot of babies there in Israel, but what is that? South Africa, okay, 2.4, their population's going up. So Saudi Arabia, Mexico, barely going up. That's just at the replacement rate, actually. Turkey's going down so much, and these are mostly European countries. This map does not include Africa, right? We saw the population trees. There are parts of the world where the population is still exploding, but this is Europe, Middle East, and the Americas. But it's a real challenge for the future. And really that the answer is, and this is not going to make everyone happy, immigration, right? You need immigrants coming into your country to fill those jobs, to keep this system alive, or else it doesn't work. You can't have benefits, or then you start upping the age, or you can't retire. In America, it's like 65 to 70. What are you going to say? You can't retire till you're 70? You can't get benefits from the government till you're 70? How high are you going to push that age? 75 next? Is that even possible? Are we expecting 75-year-olds to be working? I mean, this is part of the challenge, the economic. And we're just talking economically speaking here, of a slowing population, of an aging population, specifically if you're going to try and limit immigration. So, what do you do? How do you solve this problem? How do you convince more people to have more babies? Open the door for more immigrants? I don't have the answers.